In this video, we are going to cover the question of the Carcano M91/24 TS carbine, which is the cut down version of the long rifle, the M91 long rifle. Now, before we start, if you go on my channel and search my channel, not search all of YouTube, search my channel and look for the videos, every single one of these 4 rifles, I have made an extensive video where I have shot 4 different types of ammunition through them to check them for function and accuracy. Okay, the results are there. I used a 2 off-the-shelf PPU'd 123 grain, 139 grain, which is a small diameter bullet. I used my Hornet A's, which were the 268 diameter 160 grain bullet, which pretty much closely approximates what the Italian military actually used, but it is no longer manufactured. And I also shot my 270 diameter cast bullet through all of these guns, and I show you the results. Take the time to look for it. You know, the reason I made these videos is not to repeat myself every 2 months when someone catches this video and has a billion questions. Look it up. The reason I'm making this video is because A, to correct the mistake that I made in the assumption of this model gun, and 2, because a good friend of mine, a YouTube friend of mine, longtime cohort, the Gun Geek, I guess he's brought this up several times, and we've had some conversations about it. So now I'm going to look at the guns and give you kind of like my opinion on what I think the debate is when they cut these down. You know, why would the Italians do it if they made an inferior weapon and all this other stuff? So we're going to go over it. Now, another thing. The only reference I have is this book. Okay, this guy kind of covers the gun well. You know, this variation and what was done, and there's photographs and everything, the explanation of it in here. But where the problem lies is in doing this conversion, the question arises of the gain twist rifling in the barrel of these guns. Also, there is mention in this book, and I mean it's just a picture and a little thing, there's no explanation, he just says, interestingly enough, the asterisk on the barrel, and let me see, I'll read it exactly, it's just a little itty bitty thing. There's a picture and a little tiny thing along the picture. It says a model 1891 rifle produced at Chereni in 1917 and converted in 1926, which is all there. Of interest is the asterisk identifying a barrel that has been rebored because of excessive corrosion. That is all he says about what that asterisk means. Now, there were some other fellas that wrote a book, and the thing is, the book's out of print, but they're doing another edition, which I sent my money order out for over $100 to get another book. And from what I've seen, the authors of this book have tried to explain it on a forum, just writing as a reply. And he said the confusion lies, and there were 2 ways they converted these guns. The first 100, okay, they were reboring them out in tubing, putting a sleeve in, where you ever see the Carcanos that say tuba, or the Italian word for tube, on a receiver. That was something the Italians were doing during the war when guns were shot out, is relining the barrels. Okay, they had a process. Now, the author of this other book, which when I get it in a few months, we'll go over the book and this problem again. I'll have a new source of information. He said the first 100 guns were converted like that, and they realized it would cost too much money to do it, so then they went to the second conversion. Okay? And now he says that the asterisk means, and I have a barrel here to show you. Now we'll get up and show you what it means. He says the second conversion, the asterisk, means that they had to shorten and rechamber the barrel. Hold on a second. Okay, this is not a Carcano barrel, but is a military barrel pulled off of a rifle. Basically what he's explaining, if you look at this thread, say you had a problem where the gun wouldn't headspace, okay? The chamber was screwed up or it's too long. If you look at the threads, there is a distance between the very tip of the threads. If you measure that distance, divide it in half, you can remove that amount off of this surface here and this collar here. And then what that would do is shorten your chamber by 60 or 80 thousandths maybe, whatever a turn takes. And if you shorten this collar and the face, then in theory you can reseat this barrel back. It will line up in time correctly for the sights, and then you would just have to run a chamber reamer down and ream the chamber to depth, okay, to rework the barrel. But the problem, there's a problem with this, but bear in mind that's what he says. Okay, he doesn't mention re-boring or re-rifling, okay? And I've examined these guns a little closer, and there's some confusion about this whole process, okay, which I have not clarified. I'm just going to make an assumption here. So let's go on and keep going with the discussion, and let me show you what I have. Alright, what we got here is we have the original 91 long rifle, okay? And like I said, check out the videos and see the performance of the ammo. I have done the ammo test with all of these in that series of 20 videos, okay? Now, when it comes to the 9124s, this is the first one I got many years ago, okay? You see it's a 1917, has the asterisk on there. Okay, there's the make, but this one is not a recent import. As you see, the import mark isn't there. I believe it is up over here, up under the barrel somewhere. So this gun was brought in the 90s, 80s, 90s. Okay, so this has been in the country a bit. Now, this one here that I got, these are the recent ones. All right, without the asterisk, I believe was Palmetto State Armory, is this one. The bore on this is pretty good. This is a 1896, I believe. There's all our different markings, serial number, and a familiar importation mark. Okay, this one here has asterisk 97. I believe this was from Buds. And again, you know, recent importation. The bores on these guns are very nice. Okay, they're clean. They're not gray. They don't have any crud in them. These two are nice. The mistake that I made is in this gun, I did not check it out. This gun is got a very worn out bore. I will go over the measurements I took and tell you how they compare. This one's just basically shot out. Okay, these two are not. These two are fairly close to this one here, and they all have a bore which is in standard. They're not worn. Okay, the gauge pin went in. The bores are fairly clean. They're not rusted or dark or anything, and they kind of come in the spec. In other words, they're not far off. We're talking maybe a thousandths from what they should be, but they're correct good bores with no excessive wear. So that's the situation. So we'll go over that here in a second. Okay, I have the guns disassembled, and we can take a good look at them as they are. I have the 91 long rifle, and as you see as they're lined up, how the conversion went. Okay, and I will explain that here in a minute. But let's first talk about game twist rifling. Okay, let me explain what it is, what specs that I have, okay, and why, using the ammo, we'll discuss why the Italians use this type of rifling, okay? So let me set the camera up, and we'll start with that first. Okay, why did the Italians use game twist rifling? Well, basically it comes down to the ammunition. This is the cartridge they used in the 10.4, this rifle's predecessor. It's a jacketed bullet with a smokeless powder charge. Okay, and there goes your black powder only theory with these old guns too. But how this worked, it used a powder called ballisticide, a very early version of smokeless powder, which is a nitrocellulite based powder that uses nitroglycerin as part of the formula. Now, the thing about this bullet is, even though it's got a metal jacket, only a very small section, I'd say 1/3 or less, it's like a belt right here, that actually rides in the bore. This nose and then the base beyond this case is not, it's riding the bore, but it's not engaging the rifling. So this would launch this bullet out at a fairly respectable velocity, but only a small amount of the bullet is actually bearing in the rifle as it goes. Now, when they adopted the 6.5, which is a cartridge the Italians developed themselves, at first they used this nitroglycerin-based smokeless powder. The difference between this bullet and this one is it's smaller, higher pressure, and more of this bullet's bearing surface, let's say 3/4 of the bullet, is riding on the rifling, engaging the rifling in the grooves. Using that powder created a problem. There was excessive heat and pressure, which wore out the throat area, and also, like is mentioned in some places, I believe it damaged the jacket, it tore the jacket up. Because that initial pressure spike when the cartridge went off created heat and pressure, which was creating problems with the ammunition. So the way the Italians worked around the idea was to use a game twist rifling. And what that was is, it's a right hand twist rifling that is basically almost one turn in 23 inches at the edge of the chamber, and it progresses to one turn in 8-inch here at the end of the barrel. Okay. All right. So, like I said, down here, right at the end of the chamber, and you can look down there and see the way it's obvious how that rifling just barely turns. 1 in 23. 1 turn in 23 inches here, and supposedly 1 turn in 8 inches down here at the very end, okay? What I think the problem is, and the thing is, the Italians, this was a state secret. The barrel twist was a state secret, so the exact specifications was a military classified secret information, so you don't have a lot on it. I have a theory, okay, because of excessive throat wear, I don't know if it starts at 1 in 23 in an inch, where does it go to where it goes up to 1 in 8? What happens, we're assuming that this is a continuous, steady spiral all the way up. What happens, and this is a theory, if it starts at 1 in 23, and ends somewhere around here on the barrel, about here, at the 1 7, and then continues that way down. If that is correct, if my theory is correct, then when you saw off these barrels to 24 inches, you're still having the same gain twist effect, just on a shorter barrel. Because when you examine carbines later on, even the ones built in the late 30s and that, they do have the gain twist rifling. So I'm thinking, and because it's a state secret, the Gun Geek suggested we take a barrel and saw it in half and then look at it, which is one way of doing it, but I ain't going to do that. I'm thinking that even though the twist rate is different here, I believe maybe it stops about here or even here would be good enough. Then once you cut the barrels off to there, I don't know, but maybe the twist is consistent from this point forward. And that solves the problem of how the Italians could cut these off and still have a viable weapon. Okay? That is what I'm thinking. So that's food for thought, but that's my thought on it. And like I said, because it's this weird thing and a state secret, I don't think anybody has exact specs. I think these people are getting the specifications by using like chamber castings and measuring the twist rate. Now I had a person tell me they used a cleaning rod method of pushing it down, and they got a 1 in 10 twist rate on this barrel. Now, with that information, even though you really can't measure a gain twist because you don't know what the rate of gain is, 1 in 10, okay, which 10 inches is half the barrel, he did this 1 in 10, I don't know which way he did it, it sounds about right, where you'd have a 23 per inch twist, and then say around here it got into 7, that would kind of work out. So I believe that's the solution to our problem. The guns were not cut down to where it was a fault where you're not getting the correct twist. Okay, so that probably solves that mystery there, if I'm correct. And I have no way of proving that beyond a shadow of a doubt type of deal. Okay? So that may answer that question. Now, let's go on to how the conversion was done. And I'll get the camera and we'll take a look at this here. Okay, the question of how they did this with the original barrel. Well, the original barrel is turned, and this sight collar slides on here and is attached. And this diameter is necessary. This corresponds to the bayonet. So if you shorten the gun, you must have this diameter to attach a bayonet, irregardless of the length. Now, if we look at the barrel, we notice that it is slightly tapered and swells up as it goes down this huge length until this point here. Then you have your Knox form flats. Okay, so this is quite wider, it's wider down here than it is there, and it is turned for the sight. So if you saw the barrel off at this distance, okay, what you must do is you must A, turn a step for the sight to reuse it, so there's a step there. But then now if you left the barrel there, it would the diameter of the barrel would be up high. So they also, probably to lighten it and everything, did turn the barrel down to where it comes up just in front of the rear sight. So there were 2 diameters turned. The barrel was cut off. They turned this diameter here somewhat as a relief and to lighten the gun up. Also so you wouldn't have this weird thing way up here. And then they had to turn the very end of it to get the diameter correct for the sight collar and the bayonet. Now, the Gun Geek said, Now I already went over the gain twist problem. One of his theories was that with the gain twist, they would cut the barrel to where it was, had a proper twist rate, and then they would take this stub and machine it out and tap it, and then tap a section of the barrel, turn it, and then twist it in and set it in there. Unfortunately, that is not what was done. And how I know this from these 3 examples is, number 1 in 26 per inch turn of rifling looks a hell of a lot different than 1 in 7. So when you hold these barrels up to a light, bright light, you can see where that rifling takes a long, twist, and when you look down the end of the barrel, you can see where that twist is faster. It is quite obvious by looking. And once I look down this gun here and these others, okay, you can see the difference. Okay, it still is 1 in 26 in front of these chambers. They did not cut out a segment of this barrel to change the twist rate and set it back. Okay, that's not there. Also, in looking at how the stubs go in there, I've worked in a machine shop that is turned, and what they did is they come back with the tool and busted a chamfer on there. That one's pretty good, and you can see it's solid. There is no thing of threading. This one's a little beat up. They did a half-assed job on this, and this one here also. I mean, it appears that, but it is not. That is a lathe turn cut. That is a finished cut on a lathe. Okay? And there is no difference when you look inside the chamber. There's nothing different. They all look the same. There's no sleeve or anything whatsoever, from what I can tell. And the twist rate is the same. It's 1 in 26 in front of the chamber on all of these, and it looks fairly much like the end of that one. I can't measure it exactly, but it is visibly different. So that takes us away from the threading into the stud. That's not right. And also the gain twist. I believe the solution to that is that somewhere before we get to this length, we are at, so like say somewhere down in here, we're at the 1 in 7, 1 in 8, even if you're here. Okay? That makes sense. That makes the conversion work. Now, going back to barrel wear. Okay? And this is where I made a mistake. I'll go over the different measurements I took on these barrels for the bore. This one is worn, so it doesn't matter what you shoot in it or whatever. I'll give you the readings, and we'll look at these also. I don't think I measured this one. I measured these two because I knew this one was good, this one was worn, and I used this as a control. Okay, so we'll go over the bore measurements, and it brings us to that weird asterisk, what it means. All right, and that's where the confusion is, and something gets lost in translation. It's like the loading chargers I had made from the guy in Italy. We'd call them chargers or clips. When he translates it into English, he calls them loading plates. So somehow the terminology in Italian, when you translate it, gets crossed up. And like I said, where that guy had it in the book, he said corrosion. He may have meant erosion. And we'll go over the confusing part of the asterisk thing next. Okay, now, when it comes to wearing the bore, I ran out of the proper diameter lead black powder bullets to slug these barrels. But I think I slugged this barrel, and it's kind of close to where it should be. Okay, specifications on the bore. All right. The bore is supposed to be 256 thousandths, basically the hole in the middle, and goes out to, and these are the specs, 267 is the groove depth. So that is the minimum. You always got plus or minus 2 or 3 with this, so you're not really ever going to find a bore that is exactly at that 256. So I used the steel gauge pin. What it is, the steel gauge pin is machinist tools. You have a set of pins that are hardened and ground that are a set diameter, okay? And they range from 65 thousandths to up to an inch, okay, if you got all the complete sets. But I have a set of these, and how you would measure this hole, it's a machinist trick. If a gauge pin slides through the bore completely, okay, that means you got, and then the next size up, a thousandths up, will not go into the bore. That means that whatever pin went through, be it 256, but a 257 won't go in, that means the bore is actually 257 thousandths. So whatever pin goes through, add a thousandths, and that is the exact size of the bore. So, in using this method for the rifle, I got a 256 pin to go all the way through. And a 257 went about halfway down. There's a spot in there that it hit, and I didn't want to force it. So, this barrel is 257, and it may be worn, which is normal. Barrels wear from the muzzle down. Okay, so there's a thousandths wear about halfway, which could show use, or it could have a tight spot in there. Okay, which is about correct. Now, this is the barrel that is worn out. And how do I know it's worn out? Because a 259 pin, okay, it's a big difference. 259 went down to about here, and then a, let's see, 258 went through. So this is 259 to here and 260 out to here. That is the correct sign of excessive use and wear. This gun was fired a lot and has a worn out bore. Simple as that. Now, when I went to this, I believe here, both of these two rifles, I have the both of them down here. A 256 pin went through, I believe, on one of these, and the 257 went on the other. So the 256, that means one bore is, and they were smooth going through. They were even. There was no wear. So one of them's 256, and the other one is 257, which isn't bad, or 257 and 258. So one of them's like 2 thousandths over the spec. But looking at it, it looks like 257 will be your nominal. In other words, if you did this to several rifles, you'll probably come up with a bore diameter of 257, about 1,000ths off. And in wartime, when tools get dull, even if you're going a couple thousandths bigger, they don't care, because it's really not that far out of spec, and tools do wear. So you're not going to get that very bare minimum. You're always going to find these military guns run 1 to 2 thousandths over the set dead specification at the bottom. Because you have to remember that it's 256 minus 0 plus 2 or 3, whatever these specifications are, to be acceptable. Okay, so these here are fairly normal, fairly good bores with some wear. That way it shouldn't be a problem. So, knowing this, what the hell does the asterisk mean? Now, I think what the guy said is they cut off the excessive wear. Like this here, as you see, it's worn to here, a couple thousandths. If you had a rifle barrel that was worn out and worn down, say, to here, but yet if you went here, you were still within that plus 2 thousandths, then you could take a worn barrel and cut the worn part off. That's what I believe the guy's trying to say, because that's how a rifle barrel will wear with excessive use, is from the muzzle back. And there's enough here that you can still, if you measured this, cut this barrel off here, line it up with that, and still probably be in spec. So I think that's what he is talking about when he says they cut off the excessive corrosion. I think he means erosion of the barrel. Now, knowing that these are the same as this, these were not rebored. So in other words, nobody opened the bore up, nobody re-rifled them, at least, refreshed rifling. I don't think. So I am at a loss of what the asterisk means. Okay. The one guy's explanation, now I'm waiting for the other book, they give a different explanation. And if you look at the barrel shanks, okay, these two, even though this has an asterisk, these two look a little bit larger. These are a little bit narrower, okay, but this one doesn't have an asterisk. So I don't understand why they would cut back the barrel stubs to seat them in further, okay? Unless maybe they did have some way of refreshing or rerunning the rifling, but from the measurements, they really didn't cut much out. So the asterisk is still kind of a mystery in what it exactly means. Hopefully when I get this other book, it'll shed some light on it. But that's my theory. Okay, so to explain all this away is, even if you had a worn out bore like the guy mentioned, and you cut the worn end off here, you still may have not that much excessive wear where you have a usable barrel. Say you had a brand new gun that was fine and you cut it off, they go, well, what about the gain twist? Well, maybe the gain twist caught up and stopped somewhere in this area to where it was a constant twist from like this part of the barrel out. Then, if that is true, then when you cut them off to this point, you still had the same thing but a shorter barrel. And I believe that is the key to this. And it's a much more understandable solution, that the Italians really did not send out substandard weapons. I don't think so, because if you watch my videos, these guns shoot just about as well as this one. Maybe not as tight as this one, but close enough to where it's a 2-inch groove, which is more than good enough for, these guns with these sights that it's all Kentucky windage anyway. These are not target guns. It is still an acceptable accuracy for them. So that's my lengthy, drawn-out video. I hope you're not too cold up there in Canada, Gun Geek, but that's my plug on this. I hope that helps some people out. The comment section on this will be open so you can voice your opinions. And now I'll get ready and wrap this all up. Alright, so that's my updated research on the M91/24 rifle. I kind of put an unfair judgment on this gun for years, and I'm trying to correct it. Like I said, when I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. But that's my theory, and I think it answers a lot of questions. Like I said, I cannot go into a court of law and say, here's a design, this and that. But I think it answers a lot of questions that people had. And the guns are serviceable and usable. Like I said, watch my videos, okay? I've taken this gun out and made several videos with it, and I've run it into testing with the new stuff. So just search my channel and look for the videos, okay? I mean, I got a lot of videos out there, so it's not there, but do the work. Now, in conclusion here, I was thinking, it's coming to a point where, you know, once the research is done and I have to part with different pieces of my collection. And because I do have a couple nicer examples of this, this is not a terrible example other than the fact the bore is worn. I may be thinking of parting with some guns. Now, unlike a lot of the huge commercial channels like Hickok 45 and that, where he has dealers send him different weapons to test on his show, and he's got a bazillion viewers, and then they have an auction at the end for guns. You know, I've seen him auctioned off Hickok 45 guns. I may, since popularity. Now, if you're interested, this is just an idea. If I part with something from my collection and you would like it, I could do something where I give you a certificate of authenticity that I basically used this gun in my development, experimentations, and made videos. That who knows, some of you younger guys, 20, 30 years from now when I'm gone, you can have that certificate, maybe even a photograph of me holding the rifle, kind of like Lee Harvey Oswald-ish, that you may see in the future auctions at state from the Cobra 49 collection. Just a thought. But stay tuned. Getting a lot of hits on my videos, no matter what I put up, and I like to thank all my viewers, subscribers. So, you know, stay tuned.